Hello and welcome along to the start of a brand new season from this FIFA 19 lower league career with Crewe Alexandra. It's season 3 episode 1 and today we're doing something completely different. We're doing a transfer window special from the 1st of July all the way to the start of the season. We start on the training screen for two reasons. One, to avoid any spoilers, so if you haven't seen the last episode yet, you can go back and catch up to see what league we're going to be competing in this year. It was tight whether we were going to get promotion or stay in League 1, so find out which one of the two leagues we're in. And also we want to show you a bit more about our development off the pitch. Obviously there's been huge problems in FIFA with the updates to ratings, where players' attributes have gone down despite going up in training, and they just fluctuate by month to month. But we want to show you what we're doing off the pitch to try and improve the team. So players like Morgan Gibbs-White and Ampadu, two of the best players at the club, we're trying to work on their stamina, which is why we're doing bronze training. It takes a long time, but it's important that these guys can play 2 games a week once we hopefully eventually get up to the top level of the game, as these two players should have the potential to get there. Our young holding midfielder Saunders, we're working on his defending. He's going to be taking over from Manjek this year, who's just getting a bit older and dropped down to 68 too. So it's the perfect time for Saunders to take over. We need him to be as strong as possible defensively, as the rest of our midfield have a licence to bomb forward, leaving him isolated at the back. We've got a new sub-keeper in Richardson. Ben Garrett looks like he's going to be on the way out. He's not happy being a backup, and Richardson should reach his level in no time. And then Panico's one of our young strikers who's been developing so quickly, and we just want to keep helping him along. We're working on his finishing and passing, and hopefully if he can get into those positions, he can start to make runs in behind off the ball. So let's simulate these and see what they come out as. All A to C, which is brilliant. No one's gone up a rating, but they've all edged up a little bit, which is fine. You're about to get your spoilers now. We're in the EFL Championship. We did make it on the last day of the season to the next league, and we're just one step away from the Premier League now. We've got about 5 weeks of pre-season to get through. We've got a couple of bits of news to share already. We'll take you through to see what our first team is at the moment. We'll talk about where we're looking to upgrade, and then we'll try and do that over the window. I'll show you a bit about the process of how I do it, and then we'll come back for regular updates as action happens off the pitch. For those of you wanting gameplay, we never play our pre-season matches. We'll be simulating those and just hoping we can get some results, as obviously they do add to the transfer budget slightly. So this is our team. It pretty much is the same one that finished last year, with the exception of Saunders in for Manjek. Manjek's still rated 68, but he's just starting to drop physically. His stamina's gone down below 80, and his strength's gone down a bit too. But it's a fairly strong squad. We just need to upgrade it slightly for this division. So if we look at our fullbacks, I'm quite happy with them. They've still got a little bit of development, so if we can find someone brilliant, we'll replace them, as our backups are 2 of the weakers at just 64. But if not, we're happy to continue with those 4 at the club. Campos in goal's brilliant, he'll be staying along. And it's just Litowski who's a bit of a weak link at the back. He's only rated 66. George Ray, the backup, 64, and Mason's not developing quite as quickly, so he's got another season before he can start to kick on for the first team. So we are looking for a centre-back in this window, and we'll probably then let Ray or Litowski go, depending on which one's worth the more money. In midfield, depending on whether we get a good offer for Manjek, we may be looking for a backup holding midfielder. I've got no problem with keeping Manjek for another year, but he does often go on international duty, so we may want to cash in while we've got the chance, and then bring in a younger player to work under Saunders. The other weak link in midfield is clearly Paddy Ruddock. He's a brilliant player, he's well rated and he's very good physically, so would be a brilliant option off the bench or to cover in any of the 4 roles during the season, but probably isn't ideal for our starting 11. Morgan Gibbs-White is naturally a central midfielder, but we quite like him in this number 10 role, and he is perfectly capable of playing there, as you can see. Noiden we signed in January with a view to going up, so no worries with him staying in. We're a little bit weaker in the backup areas. Jones is a good backup. Ainley's getting on a little bit. He's 22 now and he's not really kicked on in his development. He can't play naturally in the middle, but he's done a job for us, so I don't mind keeping him. But our other 2 backups are both rated 59. 2 of our young midfielders, Thomas and Griffiths, who again aren't natural in the middle. So maybe we are looking for a holding midfielder if Manjek goes, and possibly a backup number 10 as well. Then up front we've got Carlton, Morris and Pole. They are going to be starting. They deserve their chance at this level, both in the top 4 scorers in League One last year. Panico's a brilliant sub and Jordan Bowery's the 4th option. However, he was a bit unhappy and we got a big offer from him. Alcaron in Spain offered 750,000 and we could not turn that down for a 28, 29-year-old who's not really developing anymore and is our 4th best option at the club. We've got some youngsters if need be. Evans is rated 54 and Phillips 55. They've got plenty of development room in the future. It's just about how quickly they can get there. So a backup striker certainly on the cards. A bit like Panico last year. If we can bring in a youngster in the mid-60s and develop them, that would be great. But in terms of the first 11, it's just Litowski and Mpanzu we're looking to replace. They're going to be difficult positions. They're the spine of the team. Not many clubs will want to let players like that go. But obviously if we find a bit of magic elsewhere, we'll certainly upgrade it if need be. I want to avoid using loan signings if possible, as I have throughout most of this save to be honest. And if we can make sure that we've got young players who are hungry and can improve in the future, we should be in a really good position. So let's go and quickly look at the budget. You'll be very surprised. We've got nearly 9 million to spend, plus 11 grand in the wage budget. Obviously we'll have to jiggle that about a bit, as a couple of first team signings will probably take around 15,000 at this level, meaning our transfer budget will probably drop to 7.5. We've upgraded nearly everyone from the youth team. We've got them in the first squad, just so they can work in training. We try and loan a few of them out as well, as some of the players have actually improved a lot from loans this year. If we look at our board expectations lastly, youth development's critical. We've got new ones now, because we finished our ones last year. We've got to sign at least 3 players younger than 20, which fits into our squad philosophy. As we mentioned with our backup players, like a young striker and a young centre-half, those would be the options. 4 youth players to the senior team in the same season they were scouted, so we need to get our scouts working on bringing people in quickly. In terms of brand exposure, within 3 seasons we've got to increase the season ticket holders by 10%. I mean, surely that's going to happen this year. We've gone 2 promotions in a row. If more fans aren't turning up, I don't know what more I can do. We're playing good football most of the time and should be able to progress. Let's go to our financial ones. No objectives at all. That's good. I like to overspend. We're expected to finish in mid-table, which probably shows how strong our squad was last season, that we're not expected to be fighting against relegation. The last 32 of the FA Cup just depends on the draw. If we get a Tottenham again, we've got no chance. And no continental objectives, as we're nowhere near European football. So there's our overview to the season. We're going to go and look for some players now, and hopefully we'll be able to get some signings in, particularly in the key areas we'd identified. Lastly, before we do that, let's go to our youth staff. Let's get them searching again. He's available, Brandon Collins, so we want him to set up a network. We always go for England. We like homegrown talent, and we'll set him out for 9 months to get as many in as possible. We'll just see if there's any other scouts available at the moment. There are, but they're not very good. We don't want to spend that much on one. I think we could in terms of Marcus Martin, but I'm going to stick with Billy Roberts, knowing that we've still got an option to get another one in. We have no idea how much the players we're going to need are going to cost yet this summer, so we need to keep a little bit of money free where possible. He's going to go out for 9 months in England as well. Apparently we're not allowed to do that, so he's going to have to go somewhere else. We're going to send him out to Germany. It's a country that has plenty of brilliant youth players, and we really like the Bundesliga on a personal level, so hopefully they'll be able to find some for us. There's 3 divisions in there, so hopefully he'll be able to get some. 9 months again for that one, and that's another 200,000 spent. So that's how we're working on getting young players in, but we've got to worry about signing some first team players. Let's go and look at our transfers and how we're going to work. Firstly, we're going to go and look at the free agents just to see if there's any gems around, like we did last year with Saunders and Panico, and we'll scout some if we need to as well. And then after that, if we haven't found what we need in a couple of days' time, we'll start looking through the scout reports. We're not just going to go through the search players and find the best players in each division. There have to be ones that have been scouted, a bit like my Football Manager rules. They're self-imposed to make it a bit harder for me, and hopefully we'll be able to succeed with that again this year. So we'll go and set up our search for free agents, and we'll be back in a moment with news from it. Okay, we've run our free agent search. We're starting with the keepers, just in case we can find a good backup. Some of them have got scout reports already, so we're just going to have a quick filter through. We don't want to sign 31-year-olds, but here's an example. An 18-year-old, 62 to 72 rated. We're definitely going to scout him and put him in the transfer hub too. We'll keep going down the list in case there are any that are better. I don't think there will be. They've got to be exceptional to get in, and none of the others are. So we could have a new backup keeper, but other than that, there's no signings to be made there. Moving on to defence, let's see what we can find. A couple of right backs. We're not too worried about signing players. We're looking for a first choice centre-half. This guy, as an example, has poor stamina, decent defensively, but not worth the risk. He's got to be really good to stand out, otherwise we're not going to sign them. A left back from India, I'm sure he was there last year. There seems to be a lot of Indian players on here. I'm not quite sure why. If it's just that the players are there and the Super League isn't in game, I don't know. Let's keep going through the list just in case there are any gems. A 19-year-old Ukrainian who looks good, and he's very good physically, so he is worth a scout. Again, we'll put them in the transfer hub just so we don't have to do any work afterwards. We'll keep going down the list. I don't think there's going to be too many crackers in here, but it's the only bit of gambling we do during the summer. We're also going to look at this guy. He looks a proper talent, a young Mexican right back. Again, scouted and put him in the transfer hub, and then we'll keep moving on down the list. Let's keep going. We're nearly to the bottom now. There can't be many more. Another Indian centre-back, but athleticism seems to be the weakness, and we can't be letting players in who can't play 2 games in a week. Christian Tamas is a familiar name. I'm sure he used to play in England. Was he at Newcastle as a kid? Let's see if he's got any qualities. Physically, he is brilliant and maybe an option for us moving forward. We're going to scout him as well, and hopefully we'll be able to get some good reports on him. Last few to go through. Doesn't look like we're going to find any more magic. These two look okay. We scouted Zufi last year and he was in the 50s. And the other one from Brazil. Again, physically he's okay. He's not great in a tackle, but maybe worth a scout. We're going to scout him, but we're not going to add him to the transfer hub, as I'm pretty sure we're not going to be signing him. On to midfield. We're just hoping to find one gem who was in English football last year. We've got another young player here, but he doesn't look particularly good. He is a number 10, and physically he's okay actually. So despite his technical weakness, we are going to scout him, because a number 10 is the role we're looking for a backup. And if we can get those 3 signings in that are 20 or less, then hopefully we'll have some hope during the season. A 61 rated holding midfielder, we scouted him last year. He wasn't good enough as Saunders was already there, and as a result he won't be signing this year either. Let's keep going down the list. There tends to be a lot of weak midfielders, but we've got another number 10 who looks okay here, so we'll scout him as well. A holding midfielder this time, but he's no better than Saunders and he's only 27. Once we get to that sort of age, they've got to be real standouts like Manjek was to come in. We'll keep going though. A 29-year-old, again, we're going to ignore if they're average. A 26-year-old, not worth looking at. If we keep going, we're near the bottom now. There seem to be a lot more players who are of peak age near the bottom here, but they're not any better than what we've got at the club. And as a result, we just can't sign them. Not many more gems down there, and that was a bit of a waste of a minute. Let's go to the attackers, last but not least. Not too many to look through here, and it's very rare you get a young gem on a free agent. That's why Panico was such a great steal last year. Not much quality in the first few. We're nearly halfway already and it doesn't look like we're going to find anyone special this year. A young left winger from Italy again. We've got good history with Italian wingers. He's very quick and I tell you what, he's okay technically. So although he doesn't fit in, we're going to scout him. Remember, Kirillov came in as a left winger and he managed to play in the number 10 role. Lewis Royley's the man we released in the summer, and it's a shame there aren't a few more here, unfortunately. But that's it for the free agent search. We only found a few gems, but if any of them are good enough, they'll come in as our young signings. They can play in backup positions or go out on loan if needed. Okay, we've sifted through all our scout reports as well. We found 3 central midfielders that they were looking for, all of a decent young age and all of good quality. So Gal Bigaramana used to play for Newcastle in the Europa League back a few years ago. He's at Motherwell at the moment, has a release clause of just over $1 million, and physically he's absolutely brilliant. So if he can play well and if he's good enough for us, we'll definitely sign him. Jordan Rossiter's a youngster at Rangers. He's doing okay as well. Not quite as good physically, but has good stamina. And he's okay technically too. So he's definitely someone we'd be willing to look at. And then finally, Sean Goss from QPR. He's a good passer of the ball. Fairly decent with stamina again. And he's okay technically. Much better technically than he is physically. So we'll just see what the scouts say. So all of those will be scouted. We'll send some offers off as and when we find them. The other few we had from last year are Scott McKenna from Aberdeen. He's a 72 rated 23-year-old centre-half. He'd be a perfect partner for Ampadu. He's left-footed, they'd slot in together nicely, and we've just got to see how much he's worth. So we will approach to buy him in a minute. He's 3.8 million. It would be a lot of our budget, but we'll see if we can get him for a bit less. And then a bit further down, we had a couple more. You can see all the players that have been scouted before when we were looking for young prospects. There are a couple more down here that we're still looking at. Brahim Diaz is a 75 rated winger from City. He's really good physically, he's got a lot of pace, but not great stamina. He doesn't fit in naturally to our formation, but he can play in the number 10 role if needed. However, the other option, who's slightly older and not quite as good, is David Brooks. But he is a natural in the attacking midfield role. He's got a better stamina, he's nearly as good physically, and technically he's okay in the key areas too. He's got a release clause in the high 3 millions, so he might be someone we're willing to buy as our marquee signing this year. But we'll go through and make offers for some of these players, and we'll be back in a week or two, hopefully with news from our first signings. Right, we're back just a day later. We've done all of our big business already. We don't hold things up here. We get straight into it and we sign the big men. There's the first of them on your screen there. Jordan Rossiter from Liverpool, just over 2 million, a brilliant signing, and there's a couple of others as well. So let's take you down to see them. Rossiter we mentioned from Liverpool, he's rated 70, he's a holding midfielder, but can play naturally in central midfield as well. He is a little injury prone, which is why we've got him on the cheap, but he's a really good player, and he's on a fairly low wage too. The other one is Scott McKenna, 72 rated centre-half. We mentioned him, look how strong he is, 95 for strength, fairly quick, he's not too bad for a centre-half. Good in the air, and obviously he's fairly young in comparison to Litowski, who's 30. So a 23-year-old, a left footer, and he is certainly going to be starting for us with Ampadu. He's good in the air, and hopefully that will help us from set pieces when we're attacking, as we're going to need as much as possible to try and stay up this year. We would ideally like to make one more backup signing up front and possibly a replacement for Pelly Ruddock in midfield. We're not entirely happy just yet. We'd quite like the 2 more signings, but it's going to take a while to go through as we've got to wait for all the sales to build up the budget, as well as our pre-season tournament. If we do well, we'll get a bit from that too. So to put things into perspective for you, we've had offers accepted for Manjek, fairly high offer, about 600,000 for him. We've also had the same for another one of our players, the centre-half Litowski. He's going to be going as well. His was about 500. And for our third choice keeper, Garrett now, who's going to be going too. His is just under 500,000. And that's because we've signed a goalkeeper as well. The youngster we mentioned, the 18-year-old, Klomp is a Dutchman. He's rated 65. He's fairly strong. He's got decent reactions. And although he's not very good at any of this stuff, he's a good young goalkeeper. Good reflexes, good diving, and a decent kick as well, which is great. An acrobatic save style, and at 18 and 6'3", he's got plenty of development room in him as well, and hopefully he'll become just as good as a Campos. It means we can loan Richardson and a couple of the others out too. Bowery's now left on his transfer, and I think we'll probably be able to bring in another couple of million, which means we'll be able to sell a few on, and then buy one more superstar, hopefully to replace Pelly Ruddock. But as I said, we won't bore you waiting for those. We'll go and play through pre-season, and news of any more transfers will come up in Friday's episode as we start our championship campaign. Our first game's against Preston North End, so it will certainly be a test against a solid championship team. But that will be all for this episode. If you did enjoy seeing something a bit different, then please put a thumbs up on it. Let me know in the comments what you think of the signing so far. And if you agree with me regarding the weak areas of the team, do you think I should be looking somewhere else I haven't noticed? Or do you think I'm doing the right things? Also get your predictions in this video and Fridays. Where do you think we're going to finish in the league? Will we stay up? Will we compete at the top? If our players continue to develop, maybe sky's the limit. Subscribe to the channel for daily FM19 content from my 2 long-term stories. Firstly, The Head Coach, where we work under a director of football with no say in transfers or contracts. And then my other series, Part of the Furniture, the One Club Challenge where Torquay United, where what we do is a bit similar to this career in FIFA, where we try and take them from the lowest playable league all the way to the top of domestic and European football. There's also weekly content from this story every Friday. This was just a bonus one-off as we've got a New Year special, but we'll be back to our regular Friday episodes from now on. A massive thanks for watching this one as always, and we'll see you next time.